And that is my attempt at scatting, which is something that my next guest taught me during this episode, Gavin Masumiya. He is a vocal confidence coach. He is a freestyler. He is a shy kid who didn't know how to express himself and grew up to become a confident speaker, and he wants to share that with you and anybody else who wants to learn it. I met him through my lovely friend Theo, who I also had on the podcast, who is the Noble Father. He hosts the Noble Father podcast and has a Noble Father group. And we did an episode, and we will probably do another episode because there's lots to say with that man. But anyways, that's not today. Today is Gavin, and we talk about all kinds of things. We talk about the power of the voice, discovering your unique gifts, and how to make a career with integrity around those kind of things. We talk a little bit about principles of Buddhism and suffering. We talk about finding gifts in difficult situations, like a sick loved one, for instance. And we talk about all kinds of things. And it was a really pleasant conversation. And he really, really knows how to make someone feel safe to want to be heard. And he has lots to say and lots to share. And as far as I can tell, is full of love. And that's what we're about here for the Love of Life podcast. So without further ado, Gavin Masumiya, thank you for being here for the Love of Life. All right, here we are. Welcome to For the Love of Life podcast, Gavin Masumiya.
Yes. Oh, look, we got this. Why don't we do a little quick cheers right here? Got cheers. I got a little Buddha. Shout out to my cousin Connor for leaving this when we were roommates together.
I miss the cheers.
What does that say on your cup, by the way?
It says, put your gi on. It's cuddle time. It's a jiu-jitsu reference.
Okay.
Yes.
Does that refer to your love language too?
Yeah, yes. let's grapple. I love jiu-jitsu. Have you ever tried?
You know what? I did one last year. I did one jiu-jitsu class and then two Muay Thai classes with my friend Vladimir over there. And I didn't follow up with that. But it was something that is very that I got more present to. It was actually one of my loose results that I wasn't married to, but it's like learning some type of physical art that's not just working out, because I love to work out, but something that's more around self-defense. Because I want to have a family at one point, and I think that that's just something where we can't always talk things out. Like there's certain parts where the survival comes out where you need to be a protector, and so that's where I see something in my future that would involve a sense of understanding self-defense on a more deeper level.
Yeah, definitely. It's good for just having the, like, you don't seem like a confrontational person. I can't imagine you pick many fights or get into many fights. Me neither. I avoid conflict at all costs. I'm super passive. But that being said, it's nice to have that confidence that just in case someone did decide to come at me, I could either get away or at least keep them from doing serious harm.
Yeah, there's also like a reminder of my friend Chu. He's like a mentor of mine too. And he was like mentioning that what he likes about jiu-jitsu, it's a very kind of like graceful way, like to put someone at ease. If there's like a one-on-one confrontation with somebody, you put them in some type of submission. It's not like a big strike to the face or something. You can do something and be like, yo, hey, I don't want to take your, hey, boom. And so his is like purely like kind of a graceful way of self-defense without inducing like a lot of damage for somebody. You
can learn to keep people safe and neutralize situations so that they don't get violent or dangerous, which is obviously, I think, helpful. I like seeing those videos of when someone, some people get angry and violent and want to punch and kick things, and if you know jiu-jitsu, you can get close and just, like Marcus, my instructor, he'll just say, you hold them down until they calm down, and then once they calm down, I don't know, he can either continue to attack or let go and then talk about things. But that's another thing. But I'm glad that you tried it at least. So that's cool.
Yeah, I think that returning back to it would be great because I'm like, wow, this really is a physical chess. There's so many like moving pieces that go into the beginning of I guess any art. And
Mhm.
so I think that part of it was just like, oh, I really would have to commit like to really like learn this. This is something that I really want to prioritize. So it is something that's backlisted to be returned.
It eats up a lot of time, so you got to be able to commit. But as someone who seems like a pretty deep
I
thinker.
like that deep thinkle, deep
Yeah.
thinkles. We have the deep thinkle moments right here. Yeah, I like that. You got to create your own little swag, little swag terminologies.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I think you'd enjoy uh all the kind of lessons and stuff that you would learn through jujitsu that would cross over into all the other passions and things that you have in your life. Like
Yeah,
freestyling, for instance.
right,
Jujitsu is,
absolutely.
yeah.
And like a point that came up is like I was speaking to a few friends too that was in mixed martial arts because the one that I went to, it was very like they were focusing mainly on the technique. And like I guess for me, when I've worked with different coaches and mentors through the years, not in martial arts, but around life, around business, around spirituality, I've really been taken by people when they whittle in their philosophies inside
Mhm.
of it. Like there's some type of teachings and a deeper like things that they extrapolate through. And I didn't get that immediately. And so I'm like, am I being a little too selective when I'm looking for a sensei to think that there's going that the way that they share their teachings too, there's more of this philosophical aspect versus just strictly technical. And so I think that there is me on how I was kind of like looking at what I want in an instructor and if that's actually necessary in the beginning points, or if I can just extrapolate my own philosophies through a more technical mentor, let's say. Yeah.
Mm. So what kind of coaches and mentors have you had?
Let's see. So I had different coaches and mentors. Like, let me just see. So for me, when I first started getting coaching when I was in Japan, there was I had my first coach from Norway named Sturl. And he was my first coach. And basically, like he kind of was more coaching me on life and how to start more of a coaching business. And that it's so cool like when you just think about these different mentors and people that I've worked with through the years is that there's always like a little something that I get from them. And the thing that I got from him in even though we just had a handful of sessions, that was my first like leaning into the coaching of hiring one, is his sense of like curiosity. And so when he noticed something for me that just seemed like it was a little discongruous or there like a little contradiction there, he's like, oh, that's a little interesting thing. I just wanted to like point out like what is it about this that has it? So when I look over here, it just seems like you're really fascinated, but here there's more of a contraction. What's that about? And it wasn't like, what's that about? Right. It was like the tonality, which kind of goes into voice too, which is
Mm.
one of my passions, is like, what's that about? Like, I'm so curious. Let's like explore that together. And it made me maybe almost like subconsciously like there was something about the way that he held space that I absolutely loved and I wanted to take on more of myself. And so yeah, he's just one coach to name a few. I can go down the whole list if you want me to of other ones.
Damn, I'm
Um,
just how old were you when you met him?
When I met him, so I never met him in person, but
Okay.
like it was my dear friend Mir who I met during Date with Destiny in December of 2012, a Tony Robbins event when everyone thought I was crazy because I paid $5,000 for a 6-day event to see this guy that many people just know from Shallow Hell, but
Yeah.
he actually does a lot of groundbreaking work around the field of transformation. And yeah, Mir introduced me to him and it was just a few sessions I did while I was living in Japan. So Zoom wasn't even up yet. So that I was aware of. So we did Skype. We did these Skype sessions. We had one little consultation call around it. And I'm like, I want to give it a try, let me play for a few sessions and see. And it's interesting. You never know like the difference that someone make, even in these in short exchanges. Let's just say like 5 sessions, the difference. So that's one thing, one of the beliefs that I do have is that, like, when for your podcast, for anybody that's in an endeavor where it might seem to be going against the grain, like you never know who you're going to touch, and you're going to end up touching people that you're never going to know. So there's a semblance of faith that's really required. I'm starting to make more music, and I posted my first few on Spotify recently because I'm realizing that I'm so much more than a coach. And there was this voice in me that said, don't do that. Why would you do that? How is that even pertinent? And then I had to really sit and be like, how's that not pertinent? It's the wrong voice. This is really me case testing the things that I've believe in, and to do that through the face of music that's more than freestyle, that you take time to actually craft, that's birthed from a freestyle. That's a beautiful thing. And like, it's beautiful. Like, there's synchronicities that are taking place within the last 10 days because of that. And
Ooh, I would love to hear more about those. Definitely.
yeah.
But the thing about your track that you released, what's especially cool about that is you are recording something to share that you wish that you had when you were a child. And that's so powerful. So now you get to provide that for people who maybe will grow up not having that wish because it was fulfilled.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that too is that how that kind of came about, it was inspired by this 12-year-old kid. He's one of my clients, and we actually met during the California Science Center, this event called Yuri's Night there. And little did I know that when he kept coming back and forth, he was really shy at first, but he kept returning back to our room when I was doing FlowFam, which is basically helping people to get into flow state through their voice using the emotive power of music. He would come back, and each time he got a little more confident. And he's like, I got to bring my dad. His dad came through, and I know him. I know his father. What's the chances of that happening? And they were not even supposed to go there. They're supposed to go to another event that took place. So he was so taken by how confident his son was when he was on the microphone, and his son wouldn't shut up about it. He's like, let's find a way. Like, can we work together? This is not your demographic. And it was during our first few sessions with the kid on Zoom, which is, I'm going to have a session with him right after this, actually, at 2. And I was just thinking about, myself when I was younger and how insecure I was. And he inspired me to create this song when I couldn't sleep after a meditation. And so just by like saying yes, be like, hey, you know what? It's usually, let me give it a try. Let me work with this 12-year-old kid. And then working with him, I got something for myself. And that gave birth to the first song that I put on Spotify. So you never know sometimes when, where you might be taken, moved, touched, or inspired. All I know is that when inspiration strikes and it knocks at the door, it's an opportunity to do something with it or just pass you by.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Had you put much thought into creating an affirmation track prior to that, or did the idea present itself and you just hopped on it right away?
You see, there's one principle I have, is just like, is learning to follow the breadcrumbs. And the more that I'll do that, the more things do open up. I was on a deep retreat not too long ago, and basically it was 3 of my friends. My friend is CK, he's so awesome. And we had a deep retreat incorporating different plant medicines. And so this one was one where we actually incorporated MDMA. And it was like this conscious use, 100, 150 every 2 hours, with this strict regimen of glutathione, with magnesium. We set intentions with it. And then I shared with them like an affirmation that was inspired from my other friend and mentor, Christensen, Robert. And he has this thing called The Gift. And I wanted to hear my voice to his affirmations, And so I recorded one to hip hop music. And I kind of just shared it with them at the retreat, and they're like, yo, this shit is dope. Like, what is this? This is like a new twist to affirmations, because affirmations are usually listen to them, get into your nice little meditation place. It's a little more ambient noise sounds, which is beautiful. And this is just a different texture, a different flavor. So he's like, you should share this. Like, I bumped this. And then that kind of planted a seed around like, yeah, what if there were more like affirmations that are a little more hip, that had a little more like oomph to it, that was more for a net time, that no extra time. Like, you're vacuuming, you're driving, you're working out. You can listen to these tracks that kind of affirm the higher version of yourself. I'm like, maybe I've heard a few in the past of this, but feel like this is kind of an emerging genre. And so, me loving hip hop growing up and also R&B, like it's like I feel like the music choice that I do is like a fusion of both, but it's something that you can kind of be out and about with. So all of those little breadcrumbs, deep retreat, meeting the kid at California Science Center, working, boom. And yeah, affirmations were like my humble beginnings of personal development when I would say nothing tastes as good as fit feels, yeah, I love what I do and I do what I love. If you're doing something because a part of you is telling you that you are here to give, and there's a spark that happens in other people when they experience the genuineness in that. And then there's a spark that happens inside of you because it reminds you what you're made for. And that was a Tony Robbins quote in an interview that I love so much. I just wrote and I tattooed in my brain because it's like the secret of living is giving. But he said it in such an artistic and beautifully anecdotal way that I was just like, okay, let me tattoo that. Let me tattoo that.
I like the tattooed on my brain. I love that. Oh my gosh, that's good. I'm okay, so I love seeing people make a life out of sharing their passions, and especially when it adds value to other people. I do know that I've spoken to someone before who like does not understand coaching at all. He thinks that like anyone who's coaching he's like it's a scam. Like why if they have something to offer, why aren't they doing it for free? Why are they taking money for it? And so I would love to hear your what you can say about that, because you clearly have personally experienced a lot of value from your own coaches. Yeah, so like what can you share about that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's such a useful, and I feel like it's so common. And whoever those people that said that, like, yeah, I respect that decision too, or what they say, because coaching is very unregulated. And what that means is that it's different than in therapy where, to say that you're a therapist, you go to school, you get your PsyD, and then you become a psychotherapist. Whereas coaching, anybody can say that they're a coach. They have ICF accredited institutions like one that I went to. Shout out to the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. Like it was a great institution that taught me how to coaching and the very beginnings of how to build a business through it. But it's heavily unregulated, so there's a lot of misconceptions around it. And I think people that may use it for more financial gains. Now, because I've had amazing coaches like Mel, like even Mark and Sterl, like currently with Theo, like I know the power of coaching. And when I first started, I was in Japan and I was just coaching people for free in one in the Navy and one back in the United States. Every Saturday I would coach, and I just did it for free. And I so fell in love with it because one, it was like I wanted to become a psychotherapist when I graduated from Irvine, and I thought that was my path. But then after I informationally interviewed some therapists, they really didn't look happy. They didn't look happy with that. And I know it was a small use case, but there was something intuitive that told me, like, you want to just take a step back and really, and really assess if you want to really pull out a big ass loan to make this happen, And so when my friend Rodney first told me, like, yo, I think that you'd be a good coach. I don't know much about this industry, but check it out. I started researching about it. That's when I came across Tony Robbins, and I learned about, well, what's the difference between therapy and coaching then? What is this whole thing? And they said that, well, see, with therapy, right? Therapy is very generally, it's about helping someone to understand where they came from. So maybe we got to do a little psychoanalysis. Maybe we got to dig deeper into the trenches of some of those past things where there's a nervous system hangup that's associated with these different experiences that we have, to help you to understand that has helped to sculpt to where you are and why you believe what you believe today, because of those little 5 to 7-year-old beliefs before you had discernment skills. Let's understand that, right? So coaching doesn't replace therapy. However, coaching is for like people where they're willing to do the work. It's very complementary to therapy too. If people do it in conjunction, is let's find out currently where you are in your life, and then let's look over there. Let's look into this thing in English that we call the future. What do you want? Like, how do you want to experience your life? Like, what is that smile on your face? Look in the mirror. How do you want to see yourself in your body? If you were just looking in the mirror and being like, damn, at the first instinct, could that really be like? And I love that. because I was such the shy kid growing up. I was the one that like there was just so much about that I had and hangups around my ability to even just use my voice.
Mm.
So I really had to think for myself of like, what could that really look like if I stepped into my power and I was more freely expressed from a place of compassion and honesty? What could that look like? Because it was such a messy road to even the level of my journey currently, where people think that I'm pretty well spoken, et cetera, all this shit. However, like it was this messy journey of being overspoken because I was trying to one up and prove myself from faulty footing that I wasn't good enough. And like coaching just helped me to move through all of these like different pieces because there was like a future, there was like an idea of the character traits that I wanted to embody in myself. And so this is a long answer. When I was in Japan and I started going to personal development, like meetups and stuff, some people I couldn't understand because they just spoke Japanese, but I would get asked like, isn't this kind of like it's like fishy. That was the word. It's like fishy. Isn't this like a pyramid scheme? People just don't really
Mm.
understand. So, and that was like I wasn't getting paid as a coach yet, but I went into this industry knowing that it wasn't, how would you say it? There wasn't like notoriety. There wasn't like a good that strong of reputation around it. But my heart was like, I just coaches have made such a big difference in my life and the way that I saw my two clients at the time, like be able to shapeshift and to consider different avenues that they can think differently about their parents, etc. It was like, I, I, I love this. It allows me to connect more deeply with people. So it was never about the profits for me. It was about like, I found something that I think I could really I can improve people's lives and it keeps me sharp, for myself and how I'm living, because I'm human, everyone, I'm a human. I go through tough things, it's a very fragile time with my mom in the hospital right now. So like, there's, um, I think coaching is a reminder to have compassion for myself and my journey. And that when I am able to help other people, it gets me out of myself and realize that my life is for something, bigger than my own selfish gains.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, sorry, that's my cat.
so bringing it back full circle, right? People can believe what they actually do want to believe, but there are people that are like me that have the heart where this is where they find this to be perhaps their ikigai to help others.
Yeah, Theo taught me that. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
ikigai.
yeah. And it does,
Yeah.
it really just seems like the ideal situation, to be doing something that you're good at, that uh fills you up, that helps other people. So it's good for you, it's good for other people, you enjoy it, and you get paid. So,
Mhm.
but haters gonna hate, that's what they say.
I like to, like to say, like Kobe Bryant, I have one on my thing where it's just like, yeah, you have uh if you don't have people that disagree, he actually uses the word haters, like you should, and everybody should have an opinion of you. Nobody hits the good ones, they hate the great ones. That's what he says. Like one thing that I help to refrain myself is that like people aren't necessarily like, haters. They're just not your flavor. You're just not their flavor of weird, you know?
Flavor.
You're just not their flavor of weird. Like it might, how you sometimes people grow on you or you grow on people. And so that's just like that doesn't mean that it's out forever either. But I think that the more that we are to share ourselves more, this is how I've been able to really connect with some of the dopest people like Sable that was on your podcast previously. Or like friend CK, like the Theos of the world too. It was just by me like sharing, hey, yo, this is what I believe in. I like public speaking, coaching, and freestyle together. And I'm doing this thing called FlowFam. What's up? And through those things with music, we can talk about different flavors of weird, how I'm obsessive compulsive in a way. And I like to know where everything is at and stuff. And like other people can talk about some of the things that they're bumping up against and what they want. And we get to see each other's weird. And it's like,
Yeah.
I like that weird. So, I just think that people, I wouldn't even say they're haters. They're just not your flavor of weird. And that's cool. Like go over there and be happy with finding your flavor of weird. Come on.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I always get hung up on this like desire of wanting to be understood, I guess.
Yeah.
But I like that you described it as as flavor, because everyone has different preferences, and that's all right. Some people don't like spice, and that's all good. Dang, I was hoping. Okay, so Flow Fam. I would love to hear more about that. So I did something. So Raven Royce, you saw her. So she did an offering called Voice Codes, where same so Zoom meeting, and it's all around learning to like transform your life through opening up and using and expressing, tapping into your voice, which is really your core essence. And it was, we would just go around, everyone would just share whatever they wanted to share, like tons of just like heart opening shares, and it was really beautiful. And then like near the end, she would invite us to like sing or rap or do something with the voice that is somewhat musical. And whenever it would come to my turn, I would just cry. Like it would be like no sound comes out. I would like be like, I want to so bad. I want to so bad. And all I can do is cry. And it's the craziest thing, because when I look back as a kid, I remember maybe like grade 4, grade 5, so I'm like 10 years old, and we were doing like Mary Poppins songs we had an assembly thing, and every class, every grade did a different Disney movie and songs from that Disney movie, and I had a solo in A Spoonful of Sugar, and I was like so pumped about it. So it wasn't that I was always, this wasn't like, I can't even subscribe to the narrative that I was always afraid to sing, but I don't know at what point along my timeline I got stuck, but I know that I'm stuck now. And so that's an interesting thing for me to explore, because I would assume that there would be like a hard, moment where someone said something to me that made me contract or something, but it's not like that. But I'd be curious to hear like what's the format of FlowFam, and does everybody freestyle, or do you have the Lateas in the room who are like, and just choking and like, ugh.
Oh yeah, there's certain cases where how I always just open up, to give you a little rundown of like generally how a FlowFam experience would look like. It always starts off with honoring people for their choice, and just to come from that place. Thank you so much for choosing to be here. There's so many places that you could have been, and yet you're here. If it's a Zoom experience, you're here virtually. You don't have to be here. Like you could go out date night if any of you have a couple. Some of you might have kids. Like, so really, thank you. Thank you for choosing to be here. This is going to be a very sacred experience. So it's opening it up. You're choosing to be here. That's awesome. That's super awesome, right? And then from there, I have people cast out their something I call their flow identity. And basically their flow identity is a made up thing here, but it's basically a flow identity could be the name that, whether it's people say Raven, that's probably not her legal name, right? But it could be her artist name. And why do people have these different names? Like, well, it could be like, it allows them, they're almost like permission slips, I feel like, and it allows us to separate ourselves from the artist itself and the art itself. And then it also can give us permission to live into a higher version of ourselves, right? That's not constricted by all these limiting beliefs that's associated with Gavin or with Taya. And so I was like, feel free, try on, be playful here with a name, or you can do your regular name, that's fine. Set an intention. What's an intention that you like to have in this experience, that if you were to walk away, click off, leave from the Zoom, that you pat yourself on the back, like, I'm so proud of myself for how I showed up, which means that your intention is 100% in your control, right? Maybe it's to be courageous. Maybe it's like, let me be more playful because I'm so hard on myself. You know what? I'm going to be more vulnerable. I'm going to let people into my world because I've had this mask on for so long and I'm kind of tired. And so it's up to you. You got to make it personal to you. And I have everyone share it. So we hold each other to like, this is how we're seeing each other here. We're seeing each other as their flow identity, living into their highest versions of themselves, so feel free to ask any other questions that I have. There's two really big core principles in FlowFam that I think is why like people just love and feel so connected to the people after those experiences and to the community. And one is called flow is just around the corner. Flow is just around the corner refers to the flow cycle. You have struggle, release, flow state, and recovery. For anybody that's in here, you can search it up. I didn't create it. It was the work of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, Stephen Kotler, and Jamie Will. They're really the leading heads of studying this whole flow state from science. And basically, whenever we're learning something new, we're going into unknown waters, like speaking extemporaneously in front of a group of people you don't know. There could be that lot of fear where the fight or flight comes up, the survival of like, oh, and you want to be accepted and like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say. That's called a struggle. That usually happens when you're learning something new and your skill is just not up to par yet with your capability is not up yet to par to a skill to do something. So it's a little more difficult. You got to use your brain a little more. That's okay. There's nothing wrong. That's a natural part of the process. So flow is just around the corner. I say it's just like, this is all about like, you're walking down a sidewalk, but it's just foggy. You can't see more than 3 feet in front of you. But all you know is that if you just put one step in front of the other, eventually you're going to get to that corner. So if you're speaking and an exercise is hard, don't cop yourself out and pass the potato too fast to somebody else. Like don't sell yourself out. Feel free to speak a little more. Work through the stuttering just a little extra, because that's really like that's going to let your nervous system know that you're willing to go a little further than where the survival wants to stop. And we're here to rally the cipher, which is number 2, and that's I don't just want Latea to get into group flow. I'm here for everybody getting group flow. And how do we do that? We do that when 3 things are going to be present. One is that when we have undivided attention put into the space, everyone. So that means that there's a lot of distractions that can take place when we're virtually. I don't know what y'all doing over there. So that's why the video's on and we're here. So how present can we be? That when, even if someone's not speaking, when they're paying attention. When they're there and they're like, they're right there with you on every single word, every single stutter that you have. That's so sacred. The second part of Rally Cipher is what's going on over there? What's happening in that person that's expressing? Are they nervous? Lean in more. Lean in more. You know what that's like. Bring empathy, right? Undivided attention, empathy. And the last one is that no matter how people are going to show up with their saboteurs, their inner critics, and all these things, and all of their buts that they considerations for themselves and what they believe they can or can't do, we're seeing them as whole and complete. And when you can inject your undivided attention, be curious about what's going on over there with empathy. And then number 3, you've seen people, and she includes herself in the spirit of Ubuntu, I am as you are. You see people here as whole and complete. It becomes not just a safe space, it's a healing space. Because then people open up in ways, and they're whatever you want to call it, their throat chakra, it gets lifted, and they can start talking about their insecurities like, I don't know why I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm really going to say. This is not even on beat. My mind just talks shit a lot, Yeah. And it makes me start to think that, why does it happen all the time? And then they start to use this empty void as a space to talk about these insecurities. And what does that do? That creates little pockets of relatability. Who can't relate to insecurity? Who can't relate to jealousy, right? And you poke these into the void, you're not taking it out on anybody else. You're speaking to this space that leaves windows of opportunity for others to be like, me too. I got that, But it's not a me too, like I say, it's not a misery loves company that we just stay there. It's a connection point. And from that connection point, because we see people as whole and complete there, it lifts people up. It makes it, it can create new realms of possibility for song ideas, for a conversation to be had outside of the space, And I think that, that's how we go. That's part of how we set up the container. And then I guess this one exercise that I love here that we could say is I do something after that called scatting. And basically scatting originates in jazz, and it's just like you're just making noises, unintelligible, nonsensical noises here. And how I open this part up too is that like in language, we get caught up when you think analysis paralysis is just trying to make sense of everything. I still get caught up in that, So scatting is like, we have to get used to, hey, y'all, sometimes things don't seem to make sense, and that's okay. That's all good. So we're going to use this instrument called our voice to practice that, So Roger Love, he's this voice coach that over the past 2 years has really influenced my general philosophy around voice. And he says that, when you think about our voice, like there's these little sound waves, but when we're speaking, these sound waves are traveling away from us. They're traveling this way, right? And if you shut the fuck up, everybody, if you just shut up, you could still hear your own voice. Like you could still hear it. You do not have to use your voice to hear your own voice. It's here. you probably hear right now, right? So when we use our voice, what if, and he always does that, what if your voice was meant for out there? What if your voice was meant for others? So if we look at it from that way, your voice is actually a gift. It's a gift that whenever you open your mouth, it may not resonate with everybody, but if you use your voice and you express, like, you're creating opportunities for people to connect to that. Not everybody will, but some are. And I think that's so beautiful to see voice that way, So scatting is like, after we go up, remember your intention, everybody. We're going to rally the cipher, go a little further than you can. And then I might start and be like, what about the beat? The ba 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 ooh yaba yo shaba she and then I'll pass it on. Oh, Ladea, go, and then you would go.
Oh my God, that would be so fun. Okay, so so much to unpack there. Like, okay, first of all, that's obviously why it's so fucking worth it to share your gifts for money. Like, people want it and it has value to them. So thank you so much for doing that. And you get to meet all kinds of friends that you get to deeply connect with because you've seen each other like want to hide and not hide instead. And the scatting thing, hold on. What was the last thing? There's so many things. But I didn't want to interrupt you because I was just like loving that stream of consciousness that was coming through you at that moment. The idea of like, what if your voice is meant for out there? Amazing. Love that. Here's my ring. I literally like, I'm getting married in August. So yes. And my fiance, Sean, we met at jiu-jitsu, but we were both in relationships when we met. So we were not like getting to know each other at all in that kind of way whatsoever. But I had this like need to put out my podcast because I was like, I just need to share my heart and talk about things that are important to me and put it out there somehow. Like, my voice was being summoned out into the world. And then that's actually how Sean got to know me, was listening to my podcast, because that was appropriate. He can listen to a podcast. And that's how, and yeah, so that's kind of one of those things that really makes me feel the like connection, one of like all things in the universe, and the power of like things really do want to come out of us, and you can feel it. And if you the breadcrumbs, right? Follow the breadcrumbs. There's these little subtle things that if you pay attention will literally guide you to the most expansive, transformational, meaningful experiences of your life. So I mean, like, I'm getting married, for instance.
Right.
Yeah, but so I would love to hear you just share more about how you discovered the power of voice, what that means to you. Go deep in whatever that means. Oh,
yeah.
My camera just go ahead. We'll just carry on.
It's okay. You could do that. We gotta embrace the ebb and flows of life.
Okay,
That's just a part of it. And so while you're doing it, I'll just continue. Here we go. We're doing a little bit of an intermission, everybody, but maybe that allows us a little space to tap into our intuition, everybody.
Oh, I'm receiving a call. You want to know what's so crazy? Sean's calling me right now. I was talking about him and he's calling me. Okay,
these everyone we're calling these little synchronicities. So is this really the ebb? Is this really an ebb? Or is it more of like a synchronicity? Synchronicity.
Amazing. Okay.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Wow.
There, your voice is nice.
Right on cue, that was.
Oh.
Married, and then he's calling me this thing. So anyways, the power of the voice, huh?
The power of the power of the voice. And congratulations. I don't think I knew that you were going to get married so soon. And to hear the backdrop also of you just like saying that something was summoned to come out of you, and that allowed both of you to, what's his name?
Sean
to get to really understand you more on a deeper level, on a spiritual level, whatever that level is. It allowed him to understand more deeply on his own time, right, through this podcasting arena. That's so awesome. Like, going back to your question, like around, I don't know, just around voice, like there's different moments, that I think are really, that help to shape or even start to change your trajectory even 1 degree, and there was this, there's a few things. Like one was in fifth grade. I mentioned this story. It's like a really, like a kind of a big one, was that in fifth grade, fifth grade, I was they had this opportunity to just play called Lucy Whipple. This was right before we culminate to go to middle school here. Lucy Whipple was a play, this like little village, this little prairie girl, and then it's like a story around like how this little prairie village operated together. And we had to do this play at the end of the year. And I wanted to be one of the main characters, and his name was Mr. Scatter. But Mr. Scatter was like, he was the G, he owned the general store over there. Like anytime you need to get something, corn or something, like you went there. That was the store. He had the monopoly of the whole prairie. But I didn't have the courage to do so. And so what I ended up opting, I copped out. I sold myself out, and it ended up being stage crew. And like that was like, you just were all black. You were just the one invisible. You were moving the vases around and the fake bedding and stuff like that. But the thing that stood out to me was that there's, in some of his lines, we all got the script because you had to know. I was the parentheses where we had to move things around. But I always looked at Mr. Scatter's lines though. And I was in my bedroom and I would study his lines. And even when I knew some of his lines, even to heart to this day. And it reminds me like that there was something where even back then I knew that there was something I wanted to be more outspoken in my life. And that didn't immediately change everything for me. But that was the one thing that I realized, like, I need to use this thing more, And so going to ninth grade, there was this girl named Ariana in my art class. This is another moment that fifth period, it was after lunch. We'd go to art class and she just sat next to me. She was on the soccer team, was a grade above me. And she just would like talk nonstop a lot to me. And she had a Kool-Aid smile. You could like see both of her up and top and bottom teeth. And anyways, like sometimes I thought it was annoying. Like, why are you asking me so many questions, And here I am asking questions all the time now. So she, she would ask about my culture. She would ask about food, whatever. She was just, and there was just sometimes talk. But there's this one time where she wasn't as happy. She wasn't as sprightly as she once was. And then she said that, there's a family thing that was going on for her. And then she ended up looking at me and said, what do you think? What do you think? And I'll never remember asking someone for me to give their advice, And like, honestly, I don't really know what I said. I might have said something along the lines, I want you to talk to him, say that you care about your dad or something. Like he said, but and then I just kind of like let it be. And lo and behold, a couple of days later, like I hear Gavin, and I turn around, and then here she was, like with the smile, that Kool-Aid smile that I knew. And she came and she hugged me. I didn't know physical touch was like one of my love languages, but like that meant something, like that hug. And she just said, so I remember what she said, and I spoke with my father, and like I really think that we're starting to understand each other more, like thank you for your advice. And that was really looking back, that was really big for me, because that was the first time that I remember that somebody actually made me feel like my voice actually meant something. That this thing that came out of my mouth could make a difference. And that created this slow roll for me to, maybe start to raise my hand a little more in class, or say hi to a girl a little more. And like, she ended up being a guru, all stories kind of have a guru of a story. She was that one. And I tried to reach out to her because I don't have her number or anything. And we were just like friends. But like, I wanted to thank her. I ended up writing a speech in Toastmasters on behalf of her when I competed internationally to honor her too. But you never know, like once again, when we use our voice, right? Like you never know who we're going to touch and who's going to be like, and then who touches us through that. Some of the greatest leaders their ability to use their voice, right, is so big. And those were like two really younger ignite moments that was this gradual process of, hey, I recognize that my voice is something that I want to exercise more, with Mr. Scatter. And actually the poem was, he would have a motto or slogan for his thing. It was beans and bacon, fish and cans, barrels of flour, sacks of yams, raisins, rice, or pork and such, woods and cottons, soft to touch, tubs and buckets, pots and pans, gullets from the Pharaoh lands, kegs and whiskey, candy trees, picks and shovels, pickled beets. We take credit, coins and dust, come to Scatter's a store to trust. 5th grade motherfuckers, you know? That's how much I wanted that role right there. And I've said that so many times before, but it still hits because it was like I had to be in the back when I wanted to be up there. And now I realize, you know what? It's not about being Mr. Scatter. Now I just scat.
Yeah.
Now I just scat.
No, you fully embody Mr. Scatter now, for real.
Our own way. I don't want to be him. We got to learn to find our own signatures, you know?
Yeah.
So those are two. There's so many more. But like those are like the, you know, those little birth moments that planted seeds of like where I am today and also where I'm going.
Mm-hmm. Damn. Do you so you were shy as a kid? Was that just you were just naturally shy, or did you have any sort of like family influence or anything like that of someone who maybe
So one of my So one of my coaches, Mel, she's actually was one of my favorite coaches. We worked together for like 18 months, and she's shared this thing called intersectionality. And basically, from my understanding of it, because she taught also at SMC, social studies classes. It's like our identities are sculpted by our ego. These self concepts that we have is sculpted by these intersections of all these different parts of ourselves, religion, da 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 da. So, I'm Japanese American, so I think collectivistically, even though I'm 4th generation, there's this saying that, the nail that stands out gets hammered back in. And so like, let's follow rules, let's be obedient. There could be some type of influence that was there. I started a year late. So I got made fun of for being older than everybody. And I thought that I was stupid. So I never wanted to get an answer wrong in class. So and the few times that I did raise my hand, I wouldn't get the answer right. So there was something around me like, don't raise up because you're already older than everybody. Don't wear any more of a yellow shirt than you already have, and then I don't know, maybe there's something around being the middle child, and I didn't feel like I was as smart as my younger brother, my older sister. And so that was, there was something around my voice that I did very egoically to try to stand out from them because I thought that they were just smarter than me. So do I have to be louder? Do I have to be, how can I use this thing with my voice in order to one up them? So it was very faulty footing. And that's something that later on I had to collapse, the fact that you're not using your voice out of a place of feeling not good enough and thinking you have to compete against your siblings. It's learning to embrace that and learning that it's helped you to garner more of a strength that you can love, so you can share more of that love through your voice to empower other people to love their voice more. And what would a world look like? So I think that there's intersections. There's not just one thing, but all of those kind of culminate into having created limiting beliefs. But then I think the beautiful thing around those beliefs is that it does give us an opportunity not to unbreak ourselves, because it's not about being broken, just to say, ooh, there's just conditionings that have taken place that I'm peeling back to understand myself, and in a way that makes life a little more pursuits, more pursuits in life to understand ourselves more. Right. And I think that's like for everything, where I don't know if I've ever come to a point where I fully understand every part of myself. I'm 35 here, and I'm still learning so much more about myself. And it's a cool process around personal development, which I found in love. I'm like, wow, I'm learning more. Like, I'm understanding deeper. What is the shadow part of myself? Oh, I shouldn't hate it. I learned to embrace that more. And how can I use that as release valves to release this kind of energy and anger sometimes in healthier ways? That's powerful awareness to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. like the ongoing, never-ending path of self-discovery. First, for me, I guess it kind of went like hating myself to totally flip-flopping over to like, okay, I just love myself. And then acknowledging or realizing that the shadow actually still exists, just because you just push it away and you go to the opposite end of the spectrum, where now you stop all the negative self-talk and it's all positive self-talk, and you just hype yourself up and you experience all this positive change. And then I say you, I mean me. And then you, I don't know, neglect to acknowledge the shadow, so it creeps up in some catastrophic way, and then your whole life blows up in front of you, and then you have to address the shadow part of yourself, and then you learn to integrate it. And then I guess from there is where, I mean, the path carries on, but now you can find value in the shadow. So the artist way, I told you that I'm reading that book
Right.
currently and doing it like as a
Yeah.
group. And so just the first week is about so you do every morning. If you don't know what the artist way is, it's a, what is it, a spiritual path to higher creativity. So acknowledging that everyone has a little artist inside of them, and that just finding a way to let it out. And so anyways, one of the exercises that we were doing this week was you would write out, you pick an affirmation, you write it out 10 times. So for instance, like I was like, hey, I'm a brilliant and hilarious podcaster. And by the time that you write it down like a couple times, you start to have the inner critic correct what you're saying, because they're like, no, but you're not that funny and no one listens to your podcast and whatever they're going to say. And then, so instead of just writing the affirmations, they have you write the inner critic voice as well. So you write it down. So instead of just ignoring it and just being like, I'm only going to think positive things and just try to shut it up, you get curious about those things. So write down the negative self-talk, and then think about your life in timelines and try to detect a time where maybe, where did that come from? Because it came from somewhere. So at what point did someone, hurt your inner artist, and you develop that way of thinking. And I just really appreciate that new, to me, I guess, way of looking at it, because I always think about negative self-talk as just being just negative, like don't give it airtime, basically. Ignore it, avoid it. But this current stage of my life, there's a lot of things coming up for me that I've realized have been present deep down for a long time. There's like something that just keeps cycling up, and I'm like, holy fuck, like I've been going through this same cycle for like 10 years, but because I'm just trying to ignore it, I was listening to, do you know who Duncan Trussell is? He's a comedian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
He's done a lot of collaborations also with Joe Rogan, right? On his
yes.
podcast. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, he's so great. So he's a comedian, but he's really into Buddhism and spirituality and psychedelics and all this kind of stuff. So he was doing a podcast with Rainn Wilson. So he's the guy who plays Dwight on The Office. He actually just wrote a book about like the world needing a spiritual revelation or whatever. So they actually had this really, really insightful, deep spiritual conversation. And when they were talking a lot about suffering, and he was talking about I almost said Dwight. Anyways, Rainn Wilson, he said, they were talking about how suffering is just part of the human experience. He's like, imagine a world where there was no suffering, where like a baby, was born from a vagina, it's just no pain, no nothing, comes out somehow, doesn't cry, never experiences hunger. There's no, and just every situation of your life requires some kind of suffering. It's just woven, it's interwoven into the whole experience. And I'm totally going off on like a million different tangents here, but
No, it's great. This is great. Keep going.
there's like an idea in Buddhism too that says like, when you ask for your suffering, it no longer is suffering. And that, when I first read it, didn't make any sense. I was like, I don't understand this at all, but it's starting to make sense. But because now it's your desire. But one of the things that Rainn said, he said the only way out is through. And that struck a fucking chord in me. I was like,
Mm,
damn, okay. So like, yeah, so right now I'm having this whole thing of this,
yeah.
I guess, traumatic thing that keeps coming up, and it's been like over 10 years, and I'm just always trying to like push it away rather than look at it. And so now we're
Mm,
looking at it. And yeah, I don't know where we go from there, but yeah, just being
yeah.
willing to look at the things that are painful and welcome them instead of trying to hide it and because it's a part of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Like there's actually quite a bit that came up for me when you were just mentioning, because yeah, Buddhism, that is one of their premises, that suffering is inevitable, right? And then you'll hear other personal development scriptures of different people saying that suffering is actually optional. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
yeah.
And people will say that. And like, I know that in my life, I've experienced mentally what I would say. Oh, I felt like I was suffering in that moment. I didn't have any friends. I was doing drugs, did this, did that. Like, and then that's when I ran away and I went to Japan. And then it created this awesome like journey through it because of that. Or I didn't have, I hated my voice growing up. So therefore, why am I so compassionate for people that, that feel like they struggle with their voice? It's like, because it hits the little kid in me, right? It hits that part where I thought I was in deep part of pain. And it's an interesting wondering of like, yeah, what would that be if there was no those pain points? Would I have the level of passions would I have the same level of passion for me around freestyle voice, public speaking, around coaching, and really learning to wanting to deeply connect with somebody, to really care about, I don't know, just say what's up to Grace at Trader Joe's. Like, she's just this awesome older lady there that I always want to do something to make her smile. And like that can all in a way be taken from beginnings of like me barely smiling. Like this is these I kind of smile, but like right here was sixth grade. I always have this photo of me in sixth grade when I was 12 years old, because one of my clients is 12, and he's kind of half smiling, but he doesn't want to because he has fucking braces, you
Yeah.
know. And I in my pictures around teenagers, like you never really see me smiling. Like so now like I love to make people smile and to make people feel good about themselves. And so another thing that came up for me too, of like when you said the way through, is yeah, like I love my mom so much.
Mhm.
She's currently like she in the hospital here, and yesterday she got put into the hospital. And like, yeah, and then when I was speaking to two of my friends, CK and Sable, it was like, and usually we're just talking about like business or what's something that we've been working on that we want to get feedback for. And when I just opened up with it, like I didn't want to take up too much space, so I just like, no, but we can keep on going with this. And then they said, slow down, let's like, something gotta go. This is big, this is mama. So I end up talking more about it. We did a collective blessing to my mom. I will see her this evening because I haven't seen her yet since she got admitted. And then I just, at a certain point, I just like started crying. I just like, I got this sense of, sad. And a part of me immediately wanted to not stay there. But then because I'm so grateful to have amazing friends, that I allowed myself to stay there more. And it was such a beautiful thing, because like, yeah, there's just like uncertainty as far as the kind of autoimmune disease that she does have. And um and I know that things are gonna, that there's going to be a sense of resolve for sure. It's just in times of uncertainty, like it for me to let it out and to even like cry yesterday, that like there was so much more of a lightness there, like um like a lightness and a levity of like I didn't know that needed to come out. I didn't know that needed to come out. And I'm glad it came out in the way that it did, in the circle that I was at, in a trusted circle right there,
Mhm.
because the whole world doesn't need to see that from me. But there's select circles where they're trusted, where like, let's go in. And so I think sadness and in those moments too are so beautiful because it comes from a place of like love, that I love somebody so much that you know, when they're going through things like it reminded me though, I can't tell you the last time I cried like that in a minute. And I was like, dang, that actually felt good.
Mm.
After, you know, give ourselves that permission slip, you know, with with people that we love and care about to share that, you know, because that allows me to show up more, that'll allow me to show up more strongly for her, you
Hmm.
know. And I think that's an important piece, is like for us to have our circles, especially as men, I think to have our circles where we can express in those kinds of ways, so we can show up, we can continue to show up stronger, you know.
Hmm.
um and that's, yeah, that's what came up like when you were mentioning. And so shout out to mom, if anyone's tuning in, like, you know, if you just want to send some good juju vibes to my mama, she's like one of the best mamas out there. I'm biased and righteously so, like rightfully so. She's like, and you know, another thing that we do, she's, yeah,
Yeah, let's hear it.
no, the other thing that it's just so cool. Like she was so open that a few years ago, or even more like 3 4 years ago, like when we started this thing where we started doing just these simple meditations over the phone together. And I call it just the meditate with mama. You know, I want it to be a movement, like, oh, this be cool, but then it was more of like, no, Gavin, you do it. Like you
Mm.
do it first. Don't just create a movement, right? You do it first. And so I don't talk about it too much, but we've been doing it for 3 years. Like it started 4 days a week, then it turned into 1 day a week on Thursdays, and now it's going back to 5 days a week.
Mm.
And we have to miss these two because she's over there right now at the hospital. But like it was on Christmas, I bought her some tarot cards, and I didn't know that she used to do tarot cards with my auntie who passed away, you know, and they used to do it. And so she picks a tarot card once a week, where she'll intuitively just, you know, what comes up for her, and then she'll go and then she'll actually read what the message actually is. And I just find that, you know, during times that's, you know, challenging, one of the things I learned from my mom that I came to appreciate much later on is her ability to make to find spiritual lessons and connections in objects. So like pennies and monarch butterflies are like her way of connecting to my grandma and my auntie Patty.
Mm.
And she would always say that growing up, like she see a penny on the ground and she's like, "This is Auntie Patty." I would scoff. I would quietly scoff like younger because it just was a penny to me. I'm like, "It's a dirty penny, mom. Now your hands are dirty." It's a butterfly. They got butterflies that come around, you know.
Yeah.
But then like I found later on, I've learned to really appreciate that because, you know, um how like that's like so priceless, that to find something and to be to have this sense of like that creates a connection to these people that are no longer here in this physical world, in this 3D world, right? They quote unquote passed on or they transitioned, and yet it's a way of staying connected to them.
Hmm.
It's a way of them still living on through butterflies and through pennies. And like that's beautiful. Like, you know, that penny's priceless, right? The butterflies are just they're timeless. Butterflies are only said to live about like 3 weeks to like 3 months, like really short span after they come out of a caterpillar and they freaking turn into goo and they reshape themselves and they fly out. A little skin oil, we touch their 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 wings, they won't be able to fly no more and they'll die. You know, like they're so fragile, but she turns pennies and those into these timeless, priceless things. And I'm really like, you know, just taking that on more, where I carry this, what she gave to me, like this as tiger, you know, tiger eye as a form of connecting to the root chakra, of learning to stay grounded.
Mm.
And so this is like just so much more symbolic than just something that's picked up at a store because of that, thanks to my mom. And so, you know, it's one of our powers as humans to if you know it's subjective, or we look at something, this means something to us, this means something, or I'm a piece of shit or whatever, like it's all made up shit, like. But if we're going to make something up, we might as well make like practice, you know, making things in a way that that can empower us, not to shy away completely, to look at things and to say, hey, like, but let me actually try speaking something a little different than what I normally do, right? Like, I am a brilliant, powerful, funny podcaster. I'm a powerful, funny podcaster. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have one with Gavin. Oh yeah, and I'm gonna smile. I'm gonna show my $1 million smile there too, and it's gonna get hiccups, but that's a part of the fun. I'm a $1 million podcaster. Fuck yes. Yeah,
Ooh. Yeah.
yeah. Give
Yeah,
yourself a
yeah.
little room. Mhm.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm I'm really happy that your mom has uh gifted you with a spiritual understanding. Um and especially like to see someone who's sick or in the hospital experiencing whatever, that's for me, like when my grandma was sick and she was expressing just her like trust in the way things unfold. uh it was really nice for me to see that, because I knew that she wasn't afraid of whatever was going to happen. But yeah, has she been hospitalized before because of her autoimmune condition?
This more of like she had like kind of like a heart condition a while back that we did, and then yeah, so there were like a few instances where she had to go and get some surgery for a heart defibrillator that got infected, and then back I think when I was in high school too, she had to get surgery that was done, and then just yeah, just kind of recently, just something came up starting in February that just coming into her body's attacking her kidney, right?
Mm.
Because the autoimmune is when your body's fighting itself. So yeah, they're just trying to figure out what it is here. They think they have an idea of what there is, and there are some types of kind of treatments for it. But she's also sensitive to a lot of different things, different allergies. So they're just trying to figure out what that is. You know, yeah. So we're going. It's all getting figured out. It's still like it's just a kind of a new topic because things are happening pretty fast. And when things are abrupt, like, oh no, I think it's taking a little bit for the body to get used to things. Like, I think all of our nervous systems in the family, uh, my mom is super strong, and she's like, it's times like this where our family really comes together.
Mm.
And that's one of the, if you want to call it like a gift, it's one of the gifts, of more, how you want to say, of mortality is a gift, because it's like it's so easy to get into the emotions of certain things. And then when certain instances like this happen, it's like, hey, let's slow down. I'm canceling something this evening to see my mom. And I'm like, of course you are, because
Mm.
because there's times like this where what matters and what's important. And that's so I just know that no matter what, to what's happening, like, I do want to be there for my mom. Like, she raised three really beautiful kids, and my dad, like, it's so beautiful, Taya and everyone, like, just to see my dad and how much he's there for her right now. It's like, they were never affectionate growing up. Uh, to see this is just like, damn, that's a deep love they got. Like, all those decades, 4+ decades, being married to each other, hearing each other's shit, going through challenges, our pain in the asses growing up, and they still managed to stay together, is like a gift that I didn't necessarily earn. That was just bestowed upon me because they were my parents. And I find, like, I'm so grateful for that.
Mm.
So yeah,
That's
when
beautiful.
pain, yeah, so pain can just reveal so much deep love though. And that's just unfuckwithable.
Mm. Pain can reveal such deep love. That is a big truth. All right. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And anybody who's listening will be sending your mommy all the good juju for sure.
Yeah, send
Yeah.
it over.
And I'm sure she gets excited whenever you come to visit, because you love to make people smile.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing her.
Yeah. Beautiful. Right. And then for that, you get to do your some more coaching with your youngest client.
It's gonna be nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're building a song together too, which
Oh,
is so
no
cool.
way. So he inspired your first track, and now you
Yeah,
guys are
he's
gonna
gonna
do.
be making a track. It's so cool. Like he's so talented. And so yeah, I'm just keeping his name confidential. But he is such a badass. Like he is so cool. Yeah. He's an inspiration for me. And he's so wise. And I think that's one of the beautiful things too about when we get in creating these spaces where people can extemporaneously excavate and express themselves. And then by even asking a simple thing of, like, because I think a lot of creatives or that I've seen and for myself is like we can ooh, 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 ooh. And there's a lot of inflow. So many things can jump around. Even like this podcast away, I can go in different things with these stories. And then even going, okay, based on all this, if you had to just complete the sentence. So I suppose the lesson of this all is what I'm really trying to say is then some of the most beautiful things come out. So I asked him this. I've been making this a habit with him, which is inspiring. Also, the way that I go about other sessions with clients that are older is I'll ask them that, and then I'm making these little what do you want to call it? Like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. Speaking of affirmations, I made this on Canva for him here. And so this is one of his power statements of I am kind, I am respectful, I am me.
Mm.
There. And so that's more of a power statement. But he has these what other ones he says? He says, oh, this is another one they said. I suppose the lesson of this all is. So what I'm trying to say is when the rain falls, it doesn't mean it's gloomy. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It means that life is being given.
Ah, I love young people wisdom. That's so awesome.
12 years old, 12 years old, you know?
Hell
Yeah.
yeah. That's
Yeah. But
amazing. Yeah. That's very,
yeah.
sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, you're not interrupting. You're dancing with me. That's great.
It's very
Yes.
similar to something that when I was in South Africa one time, and I was talking to this little boy, and I guess it had been raining, and for my mom, she loves the sun. She doesn't want to go to Africa to be in the rain. So, she was like, oh, wah, rain. And so I asked this boy, I was like, how do you feel about the rain? And he's like, I like it. He's like, without the rain, we wouldn't have food. And it was so simple and so obvious and just blew my mind with appreciation. I was like, of course. Oh my God. And back home, like it wouldn't be so green if we didn't have the rain. Like, thank you so much, little boy. Yeah, that's
Right.
amazing. Yeah.
Right.
So, but what else were you going to say about him?
No, there's just a few other things that he said. He just like has one about without darkness, life wouldn't be as beautiful. It is perfectly normal if you don't feel confident. You just have to get out of your comfort zone. And yeah, he'd be proud. He'd be proud. I want to give a shout out to Flo and Owen. I call him Flo and Owen. Flo and Owen. He is the little homie right here. Those are some of his Owenisms. And he's everybody when I was being trained in 2017 from IPEC in a coaching, there's a set of principles that they have that they say, these the top-notch coaches tend to live by some of these principles. And one of them is that everybody is both a student and a teacher. And so what they're trying to imply there is that as a coach, don't put yourself on the pedestal that you're solely like the coach. There is that you through your introspection, you're going to be getting you're going to be getting equally, if not more, like from yourself by working with this person. So it's like keeping that humility is what I'm getting from that principle is like stay humble and know that everybody is both a student and a teacher. People can be either examples and warnings, and either of them are teachers. Either sides are teachers there. And so, yeah, Flo and Owen has been a great teacher for me.
Amazing. That's beautiful. Thank you. Shout out to Flo and Owen. My youngest sister, when she was, I don't know, like maybe 6 years old or something, I like quote her all the time on this one. She would say, sometimes people just don't knows better. If someone does something and it really irritates you. I guess someone had told her that one time, but then she would repeat it, and she says it way cuter because she would say knows better. And Yeah, I used it so many times where I could feel on the inside like I was getting irritated at something that really doesn't really matter. You know, if someone said something that I found annoying or offensive or anything like that, or you know, someone cuts you off in traffic, or someone does something that you think is common sense and it's different for them, and just to replay that little track in my head. Sometimes people just don't knows better, and you can just forgive them,
Yes.
right? It's
Yeah.
those kids; they got deep wisdom.
I love that. And what I really like about that is like knows better. Some
Mm.
people don't knows better. People look at it grammatically, it's not grammatically even correct, but that's what makes it so dope too. Is like I feel like it's just about right, embracing our weird and our idiosyncrasies there too. You know, it's not everything's not all gonna be like grammatically or politically correct. And that some people that's stuck to nah. Some people don't know. I'm just gonna start using that. Like, if people
Yeah.
don't know better, what's her name? So I can shout out to her when I say it.
Gracie.
Gracie. Oh, Gracie. Grace. Does she also do MMA?
No, she did do like a few jujitsu classes, but she's just all over the place.
Okay.
Um,
Some people don't knows better. People
yeah,
don't knows better. I love that.
yeah,
It's
she was
just
great.
great.
She was really into Naruto for a while,
Oh,
and
okay.
so
Okay.
I'd be like teaching techniques, and she'd just be like pretending to eat ramen.
But not Naruto. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
super popular. That was I never got into that personally, but like I
Uh,
really learned how popular and stuff it is when I lived in Japan. You
mm.
know, yeah. Naruto. Naruto.
Yeah, it's a good show. Teaches you a lot about the value of teamwork. And you know what I love actually about that show is the way that they develop the characters. They'll introduce someone who is just outright evil, super bad guy, like you just bad guy, right? You're like, this guy is a villain. And then the way that they'll develop the story is you learn more about his background and experiences that that villain had, and then you develop compassion for this person, and then you
Mm.
end up you and I just love that they make it so that you really understand them, and they'll yeah, they'll like tell the story in so many different ways. You're like, he's bad. Oh, he's good. Oh, I feel bad for him. Oh, he's a good family member. Oh, what he did was actually out
Oh,
of
yeah.
love. And it just sends you in so many different directions. And then yeah, you can kind of just take that and look at
Mm-hmm.
your life around you and all the other humans, and understanding that we're all actually quite complex and not what we may seem. And there's more to us. Everyone has their own story, and there's a million different things that could have influenced in any way. Yeah.
Yes,
That's wild.
that
Uh,
is. Yeah.
you okay, so you did say that you have experience with plant medicines. Do you have any one particular
Mhm.
like big story or experience that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Well, actually, last year was my first time where I tipped my toes actually in ayahuasca. So
Oh,
I'm a fan of psilocybin, of LSD, and so I've had my fair share of that. But ayahuasca last year, where I did one with the Colombian shaman as a one nighter, and then I did one with the Brazilian shaman Mapu, which was a two nighter, and I'll say that was one. Okay, so yeah, so this journey for anyone that is curious or has not done ayahuasca, it's definitely there's more that's involved than just doing a little psychedelic psilocybin 5 hour experience, right?
mhm.
So there's something you can do a dieta, right, where you kind of have to cleanse your body. Have you done it before? You've done multiple times,
I
so
have not. I've smoked
no.
DMT, but I haven't done ayahuasca.
Okay.
So maybe you can touch on why one would do such a thing in the first
Yeah.
place.
So like ayahuasca, it took me 10 years to get to a point where I'm like, said, you know what, I'm good. Like I had opportunities that really, for me, it was to this point where I wanted to understand, like, I think a common question for others, and for me, it was like trying to understand my higher purpose. Like how can I fuse my ikigai even more deeply than it is, because definitely the business does have its ebbs and flows for me. In my experience, it has had, and that like I'm just like, how do I create this in a way where it's purpose driven, supports livelihood? What is this? And so I'm like, okay, this is it's like almost trying to answer this unanswerable of what this higher purpose, what is this thing here? So when I went, the the first night we took about 3 cups. I took about 3 cups there. It's a very big purging process. You have a bucket and you'll purge at certain points. Beautiful circle. And then nothing really stood out to me the first night. But I'm quite an auditory person. So like, so sometimes things come to me, like things come to me as far as statements. And what came to me the first night though was that I was being too attached. Like, Gavin, you're being too attached to thinking that you're going to astral travel and you're going to see some big visions right here. And then with regards to your higher purpose, they just said, I just heard, slow down, grasshopper. Life is a journey.
Grasshopper.
Yeah. And so, all right. And what I got from that is like, oh, okay. So I can't expect that this medicine is just going to airdrop me my higher purpose in a bigger thing. Like, more specifically, what is it about voice or what are the,
Yeah.
And so I was just getting that, like, you'll just keep on taking actions and follow the breadcrumbs, And so that was the first night. The second night, I told myself, no attachments. If I don't get any visions or things like that, I'm learned to be okay with that. It's all right. And a lady told me there, that was one of the assistants, said, try dancing a little bit during the ceremony, and it can help to activate. So at one point I started dancing and started moving in my version of dancing. And then within like 15 seconds, it started coming up. I was like, oh, I got to sit back down. Where's my bucket? Let it out. And the minute I let it out, I looked up and I saw the people there. There's about 25 of us. And I could no longer see their faces. They looked like Minecraft, where they were all shaped like boxes and their face looked like Minecraft characters. You couldn't really make out who they were, but I can tell based on their body structures, like, oh, I know I know golf. And so I was like, what does that mean? And then in my mind said, wait, no, give it up. Just be with the experience. Don't overanalyze this thing and try to make sense of it. So I was like, okay, I know this is a temporary, just looking at people like this. Let me try closing my eyes. Because for those that do psychedelics, those are completely different experiences. Yeah. Eyes open versus eyes closed. So when I closed my eyes, I just saw like all the fractals, the shapes that you kind of typically would experience, but except they were glowing. And they're just like, we're here. And then eventually it started to form, the shapes all form into the shape of an oven. And I was like, interesting. So in my mind's eye, I opened up the oven, and then the oven was a snake, and the snake's mouth was like opening up. And apparently, like when you see a snake, it's a good thing in Brazilian culture. It's like a messenger in some ways. So like came and it was like, and then as it was going, like I saw the a hand. And I mentioned this story a lot in the past, but like for others, but it was like a hand that was reaching the darkness, but it was dissolving, and it was reaching for something, like, but it was dissolving like it was made of quicksand, it's just. And then when that ended, an image of my mom flashed, of my mom's face, in like, just like in a very neutral face, my mom, a few wrinkles, and then. I just it's like it just started flooding of like different things. I thought of the word glue because she's the glue of the family. I thought of like sacrifice because she would just forego a lot of her own things to take care of us and for other people. She's just known as the thing that holds things together, and that she's getting older, so and then I thought of the womb of the world came up for me. And the womb of the world, like, you think like all billions of people in the world, we come out of this thing that we call the mother, like animals too, living things. We can say that thing that came out was a mother, right? A mother pig, a mother cow, mother humans. And so they're the reasons why we procreate and we have this, abundance of these living entities in the world. And so I just started crying, like feeling a sense of love for my mom. And like and moms, because there were moms in the room, and I was just like, geez, and I thought more about just like, I didn't know what that meant, but it's interesting because now, that was in July, right before I went to Burning Man, that I think now I'm starting up this YouTube channel with my friend who was a former client, Noba, and it's like the whole concept is called Asian Broskies. So Asian Broskies is us coming together. He's Mongolian, I'm Japanese, and we're going to do this documentary style. It's almost like a TV show documentary style too, that we have, and it's meant that we want to empower like our fellow Asian brothers to like be more curious about their sense of spirituality, cultivating a growth positive mindset, and cultivating very simple daily habits, for themselves. And I just spoke with him before he left a couple of days ago, like, bro, like, with these things happening with mom or things like. I want to what if we did something with where we talked more and ensure about the importance of kind of like loving our moms and revering mothers there. And yeah, it's interesting because they say that for plant medicines and things, integration is a lifelong process. It's not like you just get this download, but how to integrate them is sometimes I hear one of the most challenging things around ayahuasca ceremonies. You see a vision or a psychedelic experience, and it's like, well, is there something you can get that can be to improve our lives in some shape or form? And I think one thing was that I think my mom is also being a director. She's directing me to other relationships that can have more healing in my life. So it's not just about her, but she's directing me to other people in my life. And that this other one too is that the importance of just having quality time and being present with her. That these like these phone calls that I'll do with my mom to meditate is great to help to relax her nervous system. And Gavin, they just live 15 minutes away. This is an opportunity to actually take time and be physically there, because life is precious and you don't know in the blink of an eye in this 3D world, who knows like how long they're going to be here. So I think that there's a way of like legacy. Like I made this little thing for her that I have on YouTube unlisted right now, but it's basically like a Mother's Day memento with different photos. And I've interviewed her through the years. So I have like these really scratchy, staticky things around her. One when she was in the hospital, another time. And then just sometimes after I went through a bad breakup and realizing my auntie Soya, I wasn't able to go to her funeral, I embarked on something called a personal development project where I had 15 questions. And then I interviewed people in my life. Like I think I interviewed my sister, my uncle Robert, my great auntie Soya, Hiroya, Sumi, and then my mom. And then I think a few others, but like my mom, I went back into those files. I cut them up off QuickTime. And then I put together this little thing that's like a collage video with some of her like wisdom. And I want to be able to like promote the legacy of people that have helped me even when they're alive. My mom is so richly like articulate and wise in ways that I didn't appreciate or know back then. I just didn't have the consciousness. So I think it's a beautiful thing, creative expression. So if anybody out there sees themselves as an artist, know that your artistry is really a part of legacy. And that we share ourselves, just like I'm doing with Spotify now. Like I don't really know what I'm doing. All I know is that when I'm doing, I'm activating my highest joy. And I got a message from Sable today, who you interviewed, and he was just like a reminder yesterday night that he's like, the next steps will be revealed. Just do what you need to do, be responsible, and always make time to follow your highest joy. And those next steps are going to be revealed, and be open to the synchronicities. So that's what I'm doing through challenges like this. It's also a beautifully connecting piece to remind us that life is precious. So, and your voice is a gift. So make sure to spread that gift.
Beautiful. So many beautiful things you just said. Art is about legacy. Who was it? There was some very, very famous painter who I believe didn't have like much success with his art until after he died. Was it Picasso? I don't remember.
Van Gogh. It was
Van Gogh. Van Gogh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's, probably less satisfying as an outcome. I would think most people would want to, get to enjoy people enjoying their art, but even still, it's cool that that's an option that, way after your time, people could be moved by your expression.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you interviewed your your family. So you wrote 15 of the same questions and then asked them all the same questions.
Yeah, that's what I did for them at that point. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and one of the quotes, or there's a few things that they say, because I mean that's the beautiful thing too about like capture the we're in a world where like kind of like capturing these different mementos or like sound bites, of course, with their permission. Like
Mm.
it allows their spirit, it allows them to live on, and like it's more than just a written thing. But she said, in during the interview, I asked her, what is the piece of advice that you give to me, Garrett, Marin, and future generations if this is all you're going to be known for? I took that question from Lewis Howes that he would say towards the end of his School of Greatness. She said, live your life to fill your spirit,
Mm.
because if you don't fill your spirit, then nothing else really matters. And you'll keep coming from this place of needing and needing and needing, but can never be filled. And
Beautiful.
I find it to be so beautiful, because spirit, what does that really mean? Well, that's just contingent upon the individual. But I think that every time I mention that to somebody, they're like, yeah, I get it. You really just have to, to really create your own life. Or like, it's not about doing something just for like only for others at the expense of your own happiness too. You have to be reminded. And my mom too is so beautiful as a matter of, we come from a very giving family, and to remember to also tend to our own health and our own wellness, and learning how to say no, I think is a family lesson for us, is learning how to say no to things without over explaining. So yeah, that was just one of her wisdoms, to live your life to fill your spirit, from that little interview thing.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious about what you believe happens like after death. Like, how do you understand consciousness?
Yeah, I
And
mean, like the way that I'm kind of like wrapping around my head is like, I think the simple my working thing is just like, it's a transition. It's a transition. So the energy, right? It's the energy can either be created or destroyed,
Mhm.
that aspect. And so it's a good, I mean, that's an interesting, yeah, that's an interesting question. Um, how I reconcile with passings, when people pass away, because that was kind of like my experiences of when I first saw, like, oh, my Auntie Patty died when I was in 6th grade, Auntie Yoshimo, then grandma, then like grandpa, then my other grandma. Oh my God. I kind of go back to what my mom was just like mentioning. And she kind of said that with energy can either be created or destroyed without saying those words, but it's just like they become this thing where this all encompassing, where energetically they're still here. They're
Mhm.
just coming in, they're in a different type of dimension. They're like, these higher dimensional beings that maybe they come into, and that they can serve as, what's the word, like omnipresent. They're just like, they're ever present.
Yeah, omnipresent, I
They're
believe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're just they're omnipresent. um
Yeah,
I guess
imagine
that's
if
the best way that I can kind of like, articulate it. I don't think too much about what happens after death, actually.
Mm.
So I'm kind of creating it here, but it's just but I do take, I think that the energy, energetically, there's still like a presence that is here. It just takes a different form.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me, that you go from physical into non-physical, but you're still here. Except what does here mean once you're
Yeah.
non-physical? Is it just
Well, it's
everywhere?
interesting. I love that you asked this question. Like, what
Mm.
is it that comes up for you? Like, do you have any belief around what happens afterwards,
I
after this
am.
little skin bag that we live in? What's after the skin bag? Like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's funny. yeah, I guess you go from, say, okay, you're a human, you're a spirit in a body with thoughts and emotions. And then once the skin bag, you know, stops pumping the blood and breathing the air, then the mind and the emotions and the body are no longer with us, but the spirit lives on. And then I just think, I guess if you're spirit, you're your breath, you're just everything. So you can breathe through other people and other life forms and other objects, maybe, so that's how your grandmother can be in the penny and in the butterfly, because she's kind of maybe always present, but then it may be in a moment where your mom desires, or not desires, maybe desires, longs for that kind of connection, or wants some sort of reminder or something, then the spirit can pass through that kind of thing and flutter on by. Yeah, I don't know. I think I've been watching a lot of like space documentaries recently, and just am being entirely blown away by the vastness of the universe. It's insane. And yeah, I just think life just changes forms and just passes through one thing into another. So that way, I guess, sometimes I think about the idea of reincarnation, but then that if you're thinking about reincarnation on a timeline, I did that second time, on a timeline where we have a beginning and an end, and like, that's bound to space time. And I think that is something that's physical. So when we transcend the physical, then time doesn't actually exist. And so you could actually, when you reincarnate, it's not like you could go, you reincarnate back in time. It's like everything is actually simultaneously all happening all at once. And then when you think about that kind of thought, then that's why we can make these quantum shifts and quantum leaps and things that Sabo talks a lot about. This is how you can transform yourself seemingly almost instantaneously or over a very short period of time, just by shifting the way that you think and feel and visualize your life to be, because that version of you actually already exists. It's just which are you lining up to it energetically or vibrationally or with your frequency. And yeah, so these are the things that I believe, yet I still am very much bound to the physical reality around me. And yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways. It's fun for me to think about the afterlife, or the nature of life and consciousness, and where we go when we die and things like that. But ultimately, you're not really going to know until it's your time. So I guess in a way it is kind of like it could be like a little bit of a waste of time, but it is fun to play around with.
Oh no, it's interesting. I mean, that's what got me interested in DMT when I first read DMT, The Spirit Molecule by Rick Strassman, when in 2010 or something, when Joe Rogan first talked, or when I heard him in a podcast, when podcasting was so early on. It was like he called it kind of like a near-death experience. And there's some people that were like, ooh, I want to find out when I get there. But a part of me was like, hey, I want to experience that now. Like I'm one of the psychonauts. I wanted to, but it took me actually 10 years to get to a point of like, it's calling on me now. And so that's when, I think last year too, is when I did DMT for the first time 2 times, and then did ayahuasca 2 times. Was in 2022. Yeah.
When you did DMT, did you manage to break through? Did you have like the full experience where you like left your body?
It was no, like it was interesting because we did the night before I did LSD. It was in Joshua Tree with a few friends. That's when we were like attempting like a startup together called Tula. And so it was kind of like this, it ended up being like a psychedelic retreat too. But that was actually really impactful. However, the day after when we did DMT that night, I did these 4 really big rips, and it was interesting. I didn't have like really big visuals, but after I took that 4th rip and I laid back down on the couch, I just like my body was just starting. I could feel my heart rate going up, and I could just, and then my first thought was, oh man, I think I might have did I take too much right here? I thought because I did more than they said, you know, because I was like, I could do it. And I felt like a sense of out of control, like overwhelmed. But then the cool thing about it was, you know, still having a sense of groundedness. I had a thing was like, where am I? Okay, I know I'm on a couch. I'm on this thing that I call a couch. My body's resting on it. I know I'm all hydrated. There's water right here. I have these earphones on. I'm listening to some of my favorite kind of like instrumentals. And that's I said, what do I need? So I saw it's just like take off your your eye covers and then sit up in meditation pose. So then I did, and then it's like then I was like, overwhelm is a story. It's an interpretation that's made based maybe on these physiological sensations, like a trigger. It's just this thing that said overwhelm. It's a made up thing. It's a made up thing. Like just breathe into it. The ways through. Breathe.
Mm.
And then as I took a breath, it ended up like something was coming through me. Like something was telling me to write. And so I ended up writing something at the time was like, I don't remember all of it, but it was like, how do I turn a hesitated how do I turn a hesitated time to a meditative mind? Can I get the mind to slow down, confidently wait in line? Anxiety go away. There's no show today. Step aside. I'm here to flow today. My competition's the holy race. Um, uh, Transforming a lonely place to that one and only face. To when the times get hard, you're the one to hold me face. And I forgot what else I said there, but basically something was coming through that if I just went through and I was able to work through this story of what overwhelm's supposed to be, like the story, there was something that was desiring to come out of me, that was summoning out. And I just remember that, yeah, how do I turn a hesitated mind to a hesitated time to a meditative mind? And you know that I remember writing after that, like writing would change your life. So here I am, like months later, that's now like not just freestyling, but like writing things and actually putting it out into these digital ethers called Spotify and shit.
Mm.
And so I think some are a little later bloomers, but there's always the universe is always kind of like sending us these little messages and also synchronicities. Yeah, it's beautifully messy thing.
Beautiful. Real quick, how much time do you have here? Because I know you
I
got your thing
have
at 2 o'clock.
Flow and Owen is at 2, and I want to just get to 45 to kind of just, you know, get to just get in the space for him. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So okay.
45
Okay.
max, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, yeah, we can even wrap it up like around 1:30 because I'm gonna need to pee soon. But
Me too.
I just you said synchronicities, and you had mentioned earlier that after releasing the Spotify track, there was a bunch of synchronistic kind of things that have happened. So could you touch on those?
No, just some synchronicities. Like, you know, one is that what I'm really just seeing that, and even in our first episode of Asian Broskies, which is going to air out probably late June, because we want to have backlog 4 videos at least. It was I'm seeing how like that is already going to be can be integrated. Like the music that I put out, the things that I'm up to, he's an actor. So we get to use actually these our YouTube also episodes to talk about the things that we're up to in our life. And also he's very well connected. So he's just like, yo, bro, I wanna help you create these 2 music videos. And I know a buddy who'd be happy to help as well, you know. So it was almost like that was a synchronicity because I'm not asking for it. You know, it's just like, oh shit, that's pretty dope right there. Then another thing, just my other buddy Omid was just sending me a message when I wanted his feedback, and he was just like, dude, this is totally on the right path, man. Like you're creating a proof of concept actually for the FlowFam that by using that process is helping you to create, you know, like actually create these expressions that are going to live on beyond a little freestyle. And like so that was another thing that happened here. Yeah, I connected to this cool group at his networking event also last week, who their thing is that they want to actually be a one-stop shop for actually musicians and artists as well. And they recently moved from the East Coast to over here. And I'm like, that's just an interesting, like, I just saw that as like another synchronicity worth cultivating more. So I think those are just like, for me, just to name a few
Hmm.
that came up over the past, like those three are the ones that came up over the past 10 days for me.
Amazing. The path is being revealed to you.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I one one of my older relationships, his name is Rob. He's an actor. I want to get him on the podcast because he has so many amazing stories and perspectives and stuff to share. I'll reach out again. But he got I don't remember what the actual Latin phrase is, but it means fortune favors the bold or fortune favors the brave
Mm,
tattooed on
mm,
him. And
mm.
yeah, I didn't appreciate it. Well, no, I did. I thought it was a cool idea, but like as time goes on, I'm like, damn, like that is the message to get tattooed on your body. Take that first step and then the next step follows. And then the path really does. And I read in a book, the universe loves courage. And it's all the same message, like just take that first step. Be willing to step into the unknown because it's going to reveal itself to you. And you have this little pull, you have this desire, you do what fills your spirit, and just move in that direction, and things come together in ways that you can't possibly predict, or yeah, or just predict, people coming into your life, people offering their services because they want to help grow your dream. It's amazing. It's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
And you're another example of someone who is really understands the importance of community and collaboration. And I'm starting to get that. But I mean, I thought this podcast was going to be a solo venture, and it's very much my favorite ones are when I get to have a conversation rather than me just going like blah, 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 in my car. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I've been just to let you know too. I've been like told like for the past 13 years or more, like, yo, you need to have a YouTube channel. Oh, you need a YouTube channel. And then I would tinker, I'll do a little video here or there. And then something was just always like thinking of like, oh man, what's it? And it's like I don't want to do it alone.
Mm.
So that was actually at the very end of our episode one that we have of just me kind of just bringing that up that I've been wanting to, but like I realized I didn't want to do alone. And here's the synchronicity that after working kind of like together, like that idea kind of like sprouted on like, whoa, dude, we have such interesting perspectives. We have our own flavor of charisma, and this is like this next adventure that I'm like, oh yes, stronger together.
Mm.
Yeah, my buddy Omar, from East Coast, and he's really been one of the biggest like proponents of helping to kind of like spread and believes in FlowFam. He always brings that like African proverb that like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Mm.
And no matter the emotional, like this thing as humans, these emotional things we experience, right? Like they say that, oh, emotions, like you can only really fully experience emotion if you have a definition for it. And there's a meaning that you have attributed to it. Like, for instance, guilty. Guilty, there's a whole meaning behind what fucking guilt means.
Mm.
Like, oh, wishing something was different and making yourself feel bad for it. There's shame. And then like, geez, there's a definition for that. But anyways, like what I've been, finding, or one thing that I know to be true up to this point at 35 is that regardless of the emotions, regardless of what's going on, just life is just so much more fulfilling. Like going through things with other people,
Mm.
like going through it. Like for me to have this with my sister and my mother and my brother and my dad, like the fact that we're in this together, oh my God, like it's incredible. It's like incredible in the sense that we're not doing it alone.
Mm.
And like I want to go there to my mom that, hey, you're not alone. You're the one that has this thing that they're trying to figure out, but you've got a whole village that like that's here for you, that got your back no matter what. And doesn't life is just so much more fruitful, fulfilling, extravagant, exquisite, richer together.
Mm. Oh my God. Yes. Beautiful. That's a really beautiful way, honestly, to wrap this up.
Mhm.
Better together. Yeah. And part of that is unlocking your voice so that you're not afraid to be seen and heard by these other people.
Yes.
Because you can't have that sense of community if you're afraid that you won't be accepted, and then you're
Yes.
in a shell. So thank you for the work that you do, and for having this conversation with me. This has honestly been so fun for me. I've really had a good time.
Likewise. Likewise. Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any final little bits of anything you want to share?
Yeah. I think that last part that I wanted to just kind of piggyback off of is like, you have that thing of like, hey, we're all in this together on this little humaning journey, on the spiritual journey. We're all kind of like in this together. You get that. But then in the microcosm, it's like there's probably like a select individuals, entities, whatever you want to call it, little spiritual beings out here that you can deeply connect with. And to me, that has happened the most for my life when I have shared my voice and I have shared, what I care about, with the FlowFam, with, getting deep into some of my life experiences, talking about my love for my mom, having those tougher conversations back on when I was working with working through some of the things around my past and limiting beliefs I was formed and talking to my parents around it. And it was getting really messy, but like all of that mattered. Like all of that made, help to create my sense of tribe and my sense of belonging. It's so easy to lone wolf and keep things to ourselves out of a sense of insecurity or this or that. But yes, share your weird, find your weird, and I'll end it with this, that when you courageously share your weird in the world, it won't touch everybody, but it will pluck at the heartstrings of the people that need to hear it. So your voice is worthy of being heard. Go out and find your tribe by sharing your voice.
Drop the mic. Amazing.
Boom,
Beautiful. Find your weird, share your weird, people. Okay, cool. So Gavin, where can people find you?
People can find me at Gavin Masumiya. So just like my name, Gavin Masumiya. You can find me on Instagram, on TikTok, Gavin Masumiya on Facebook. There's only one of me because we have a strange last name. And gavinmasumiya.com. All of those.
And you can find his track now on Spotify.
Yes, and my artist name is MASU. So you can write that. Yeah, it's actually MASU. I love yourself. It's just it's straightforward, gets to the heart of it, because what's more than, how we see ourselves, like our sense of self-worth. It's such a powerful, like made up thing, right? It's the sense of self-worth. But I think that the more that we raise our self-worth, the more people treat each other better. So I Love Yourself by MASU. Check it out.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much for being here for the love of life.
Love.
Bye.
Bye.